It's a good time of year to take on a few tips on mountain driving, especially coming into the winter time. The rule of thumb is here, slow and steady wins the race. Nobody ever died from going down the mountainside too slow. It helps if you know the hill that you're descending, if you run that route regularly. Still, you can get the occasional surprise. Come around the corner and there's a patch of ice in the shadow, or some tourist has broke down or stopped taking pictures of the mountain sheep. So just because you know the hill, don't get overconfident, because stuff can be hidden around the next bend. If you don't know the hill, don't sit at the top and try to judge the grade and think, oh, that only looks like about 5%. I think I'll go down in 5th gear. That's the wrong way to approach it. Check for grade signs and creep down the hill. Don't let it run away on you and then find out it's a lot steeper than it looks, because sometimes it's just a little too late. Once those things get rolling momentum, they're very hard to stop. So don't put yourself in that situation. Just go slow, steady down the hill. Don't go too fast. Go a little on the slow side. Let the Jake brake do the work. Just touch the brake pedal occasionally, and that'll help keep you straight going down the hill if you rely mostly on the Jake. Going up the hill, different set of problems altogether. You can still overheat the truck even in the wintertime going up a grade. So a few things to remember. If the grade is slippery, throw in the diffs before you start the climb. Throw on the engine fan and don't push the truck up the hill. Just let it walk up the hill. Don't push it too hard, because you can overheat it doing that. Keep your eye on the temperature gauge. If she's greasy, don't run in the other guy's tracks. Keep a little bit to the right, make your own tracks. Run your one set of drives on the shoulder and get the benefit of the gravel shoulder. Just ease on up the hill. Don't force the truck and don't overheat the truck. One of the most challenging situations you'll run into when driving a truck for a living are encountering major hills, major grades in bad weather. Snow-covered hills present a whole different driving scenario to a truck driver. The idea is to get up and down the hill safely, and to get up and down the hill without losing traction. And there are a few tricks to that, and I can tell you a few of the things I do. Maybe you'll find them useful. When climbing a slippery grade, I like to have the axle interlock engaged so that all the drive wheels are in touch with the drive shaft, and the gears. So you're using all your drive wheels to try to pull you up the hill. Another thing I like to do is feather the fuel, not give it too much fuel when you're going up the hill, because you don't want it to spin the wheels. So you just gradually give the truck power. And another thing I like to do is keep the engine, when climbing a hill, I like to keep the motor closer to the top of its RPM range. And that way, if the wheels do decide to spin a little bit, they can only maybe spin a couple hundred RPM before they hit the limiter, and then they can't spin any faster, causing even more problem for you. But if you're down in the low RPMs, lugging it up the hill, and you hit a patch of ice, and all of a sudden the wheels jump 600-700 RPM, well, then you've really spun the wheels, and it's going to be all that much harder to regain traction. If the chain signs are up, respect those signs. Chain at the bottom of the hill. Don't wait till you spin out and start to slide backwards down the hill before you wish you'd put on the chains. If the hill is icy, if there's glare ice or it's freezing rain, don't even go up or down the hill. Stay where you are, wait for the sanders to come. Another good thing to remember is to try to check the hill conditions before you get to the hill. Listen to the CB radio, ask guys on the CB, listen to the weather reports for the local stations for that area. Generally, in the wintertime, they'll post mountain road conditions. So pay attention to those, and pay attention to the grade signs too. Those aren't just put up there for decoration. They're there to help you. So if it says the curve is slippery, believe it. because it must be. Or if it says the grade is 5%, it's nothing to scoff at. It's still a good enough grade to get in trouble. So pay attention to the signs. Those grade percentage signs can tell a guy a lot. You wouldn't think that 2% between a 6% grade and an 8% grade is very much. 2%? It's quite a bit when you're driving a truck. That 2% grade can make a whole lot of difference in your braking and staying power. Some of these hills too, it's not like you'll be down in 30 seconds or a minute. Look at Cabbage or Parley's. Those hills take 15, 20 minutes sometimes to descend. It's not a quick thing, so don't think you can blast along and then just get to the bottom and off you go. Those hills can be long, and the longer they are, the more curves they usually have in them to try to slow people down. Because if they drop straight down the hill, you'd end up not being able to stop it at all. Your speed would just be too great. So they build curves into these hills to help you make it up and down the hill safely. The truck can handle the grades on a curve. But just because it's 5 miles to the bottom, you might be doing 10 miles to the bottom, weaving back and forth. So don't try to rush it. Just get to the bottom when you get to the bottom. Don't let it run out. Don't get so if you're on Cabbage, you can see the last mile of the hill and start to let it go because you're feeling confident it all looks good down below you, and you think, well, it's okay, I'll pick it up and let it run now. Don't make that mistake, because all sorts of times there's something wrong at the bottom, ice or something like that can just throw you for a loop. So walk it all the way down the hill. Don't kick the Jake off with the last mile to go and let her run. That can be fatal too. Something else to remember too is as you're ascending or descending the hill, because of the altitude change, that means the weather can change. So it can be freezing rain part way up, it can be snow at the top, and just raining at the bottom. So be prepared for these changes in weather as you go up or down, because the temperature is going to swing. And it can swing up or down as much as 10 degrees or more in some cases, especially if there's a wind chill factor at the top of the hill. So be ready to have changing weather patterns as you ascend or descend the hill. As always, you want to leave as much room as possible between you and the guy in front of you. You want to leave room for a margin of error in case you get into trouble and have to let it walk a little to straighten it out or whatever. You want to have lots of room in front of you as much as possible. You don't know what he's going to do. You don't know what he's going to encounter. If he decides to hit the brake too hard and the trailer starts to walk sideways on him, you want to make sure that you've got the room to get yours stopped before you slide into the back end of him. Leave all sorts of room in front of the truck as you descend the hill. And that's another real good reason to go down as slowly as possible, because then if the guy in front of you jackknifes, you won't get involved in it. You'll be able to get stopped before you get to him. Pay particular attention to your speed as you're rounding curves on slippery roads and on the mountains. You don't want to be going too quickly on those curves. You don't want to rely too much on the Jake in case it kicks the drives out. You might want to feather the brakes a little and bump the Jake down into second speed rather than have it up on high in third position, just to help you ease around the corner so it doesn't kick out. You've got better control when you're in a straight line when you're trying to stop on a slippery road. If the thing's already in a curve and you're a little bit out of shape, it can kick out on you somewhere if the road gets icy. So remember, extra easy on the curves. Mountain driving is a skill set onto its own. Practice makes perfect. Don't be in a rush. Take your time. Don't get overconfident. Just because you've done the hill a few times is no reason to think that you've mastered it. Every descent or ascent can be a whole new experience because the weather changes all the time. The road conditions can change all the time. So every experience, every climb or descent can be different than the one before. Take it easy, take your time, don't get in a hurry, and if you're going downhill, don't worry about the guys pushing you from behind. Just move over and let them go by. You pick the speed you want to go down and make sure it's a slow speed. Those other idiots want to race you to the bottom, let them win it. Don't get involved in that kind of a race. It can be hazardous. If you feel yourself starting to lose control of the thing, heaven forbid, as you're going downhill, try to crowd it to the shoulder of the road. Hopefully you'll catch enough gravel that you can get it straightened out again. And as much as I hate to say it, if you need to, don't be afraid to use the runaway lanes. They're there for your safety and the safety of others on the hill. So if you've lost control and you're losing it, take it off the road and onto the runaway lane if there's one there. Hopefully there is. But you don't want to go sideways down the mountain and wipe out a bunch of innocent folks too. So if you're starting to lose it, try to get it off the road and into the bush. Every situation's different. Every slide is different. Sometimes if you get it to the shoulder of the road, get into the gravel, give it a little trailer brake on the stick, and it might be enough to catch the back end and pull it straight again. But if you look in the mirror and you can read the whole name on your trailer, on the side of the trailer in your mirror, you've got a big problem and it's not coming back for you. So get it off the road so you don't hurt anybody else. And if she slides into the ditch and stops, shut off all the hydro. You don't need a spark at this point. And then get away from the truck. Runaway lanes are different depending on what state or province they're in. Usually the truck will come to a stop on its own at the top of the runway lane when it's just run out of speed. It'll come to a stop. It'll sink into the soft sand or whatever they've got at the top of the hill. In British Columbia, I know there are some runway ramps out there that just go almost straight up, and then when the truck loses all its momentum, it can start to roll backwards and come straight down. So that's a scary proposition. If you're in BC and you're at the top of a runaway ramp and you feel it start to go backwards, get out of the truck, but jump well clear of the truck. You don't need the steering axle running over you, and don't wait too long. Although I did know a guy that actually went to the top of the runaway lane in BC, jumped out, broke his leg and his hip. The truck hung up on some trees and never really did come all the way down the hill again. So he really broke his leg for nothing. But there's no way he could have known that at the time. So God forbid you get into a situation like that. But if you feel it start to go backwards, once you stopped, get out of the truck, jump well clear of the truck. Don't let it run over you on the way back down. Hopefully you'll never encounter a situation like that. And if you're driving carefully and going down the hill slowly, you shouldn't ever need to find yourself in that situation. God forbid. Keep a cool head. Drive safely. Don't drive too quickly. And I will see you on the back road.